Welcome, everyone, to the Northeast Indiana Basketball Summit. I am your host, Ben Smith, joined by my co-host, Jeff Metzger. Before introducing our guests, we want to thank Feel for the Game for providing the platform to have all these presentations live and available for replay. You can check out all their resources over at feelforthegame.com. Now it is my pleasure to introduce Jacob Begin from Begin Now Basketball. His hometown is Tillamook, Oregon, where he graduated from Tillamook High School. He lettered in basketball 3 times. He attended, let me see, you'll have to correct me when I get it wrong. Chemikita, that's what I think it is. Community college, where he played 2 years of basketball. As a sophomore, he was all defensive South region. He was a walk-on at Portland State for 1 year. After his playing career, he founded Begin Now Basketball in Salem, Oregon. Jacob, thank you for jumping on with us today. Before we get to your topic and presentation, tell me how and why you got started in training and who your training is geared toward.
Well, I would say, so how I got started in training, probably the first thing was, that was probably my favorite part of actual basketball in general. I look back and, my favorite part was the off-season time, the time to better yourself and prove to everyone the hard work that you put in, was worth it. So that's kind of why I like training. I've tried to hop on the coaching side, and it just has not been, as enjoyable as I do the training side. My training is kind of geared towards kind of all players. The lowest that I kind of work with are about 5th graders. I have a couple clients that I work there, but I've worked all the way up to 2 NBA clients. I've worked with them for a while, and then countless high school, college, and even just overseas pros. So I kind of have, a wide range of who I train. Also, the community college I went to is Shemeketa. It's a tough one to say if you're not from here. You don't really know how to say it. So you actually did a pretty good job of getting it close. Even to this day, we kind of have a bad name of people will always pronounce it wrong, just to kind of put a little dig at us, even when they know how to pronounce it correctly. So.
All right, awesome. Before Jacob starts on talking player development, Jeff, did you have anything?
I do not right now.
All right, I think we're going to talk player development, in-season, off-season, and everything else. So it's your show.
All right. Let me pull up my slideshow that I have. You can see that, right?
I can, yep.
Okay, let me see if I can actually get it to
present. I think if you hit present, it might go.
There we go. It was hidden behind your guys' pictures.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So, kind of all weird transition. I was the owner of Begin Now Basketball. This last week and a half, I actually connected with a person on the football strength and conditioning side. He was looking for somebody to come in and run a basketball side on his business. So we've now partnered together. So I'm now the director of what we call FTS Hoops. Basically, all my clients from Begin Now are just transitioning over into this new FTS Hoops setup that we have. Basically, everything that I'm running is the same. The biggest thing is this guy actually gave me a home. He had a half-court basketball court in his facility that he was not using for anything. Basically, they'd lower down the hoops for the hoops, and his football players would go dunk on him. So now I'm kind of in that home. I'm still kind of transitioning in the process. Everything that I have been doing is kind of will stay the same. I'm just now going to have my own home and not training out of high schools or local gyms. So it kind of makes it a little bit nicer for me. And now I have somebody above me that can kind of, pull the strings and have already a very well-established business to kind of continue help me build mine. So let's go in and we'll go back a little bit about me. Again, went to Tillamook High School. It's a super small town in Oregon. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Tillamook ice cream or Tillamook cheese. That is what we're known for. There's more cows than people in my town. So we have about like 3,000 to 4,000 people. We've had 2 Division I basketball players, me being one of them. The last one being in 2003. So I graduated in 2011. So we really are known for our basketball, but most people, do their 4 years at high school and then they just stay in Tillamook and they never leave. So to achieve what I did was kind of special, and I kind of pride myself on my hard work, and I bring that same thing into my player development side. I then went to Chemeketa Community College. I was a walk-on there, a redshirt walk-on. By my freshman year, I was able to be in the starting lineup, and I got a scholarship for the rest of my time at Chemeketa. So I worked my way into a role there to get my school paid for. Portland State, I kind of wanted to do the same thing. D1 was always my goal. Got a walk-on spot. Just did not, it wasn't the same. It's definitely not the JUCO type mentality. There's definitely a lot more politics, a lot more things that are happening behind the scenes. I enjoyed my time while I was there. Like it was a goal of mine. I achieved it. It wasn't the greatest time that I was there. I look back and, I always talk to my players now that want to go college, find the best fit. My 2 years at Chemeketa, greatest time of my life, greatest basketball I ever played, always wanted to go to practice. So to me, always find a spot that you are going to feel welcomed. The level doesn't really matter. For me, I've trained, 2 NBA players, countless number of high school, all conference players, countless state players, countless college players. Right now I probably have 5 or 6 D1 people that are in high school that have already have offers from D1 schools. So I've kind of built up a reputation in the Salem and Portland area as being one of, I pride myself as being one of the top trainers in this area. And it's also lended me to be able to travel. So I've gone to Kentucky, Ohio, Michigan, California, Washington. I've kind of traveled all around to be able to, host camps, help run some AAU programs, help, train some clients in different places. So I've kind of been blessed with multiple opportunities to not just be in Oregon, but also share my passion for player development around. So that's why I'm kind of excited, because Indiana is a place I haven't really touched. I connected with Ben and, super blessed for this opportunity to present here and kind of, put my name out into the Indiana area and see if I can help, whoever is out there in the player development side. So we'll get into it here. So how I kind of term it is I have in-season, off-season, and then everything in between is always something that I've said when it comes to player development, because there is no like one-stop shop when it comes to even in-season and off-season. It's kind of a blend of both. So when we get into it, so I have in-season and I have off-season. I kind of categorize them in 2 separate spots. The in-season I term as game enhancement. So we're trying to work on game shots, game reads. I always call it a 90-10 rule, which I'll get into that in the next slide. And then the in-season development is knowing your role, understanding your clients, understanding your players, to kind of, enhance their role of what they're doing. Like, if you're a 3-and-D guy, we should be getting threes and working on our defense, or we should just be working on the small reads that we're going to have out of, the three-point shot that we're going to be shooting. So it's just kind of understanding their role. And then film review is probably one of my favorite things. Get your players in and be able to show them, why they're getting the shots that they're getting, where they're getting them from on the floor, where within the offense and the flow they're getting it, to just kind of help them understand their side and what they need to do. When it comes to off season, I call it skill enhancement. So we're actually going to break down like the actual skills of things. So we're going to work on like footwork based stuff, clean up footworks, cleaning up, using and not wasting energy on, being super aggressive with, off balance stuff, and being more specific on like the skills. So we're talking passing, shooting, attacking footwork. I mean, I can go into a plethora of stuff. And then it comes back to film review. Okay. Really break it down into the small details of what they're doing, what their feet are doing, their body positions, helping them understand, again, how to be more efficient in, using 1 or 2 dribbles, and helping them understand, just the overall flow of the game. I always talk about redefining your role. That was my favorite spot. Like, again, off season was my favorite. So redefining yourself and, bringing confidence into your game for the following year to show coaches, I'm no longer just a 3-and-D guy. It's showing them your other skill sets that you can do now at a higher level, and be able to be a better contributor or contribute in a different role the following season. I talk about this in the off season as a 75-25 rule. Again, when we get into that, I'll kind of explain more of what I mean about that. So when we go in season, so game enhancement, when I talk about like a 90-10 rule, I kind of break it down into 120 minutes of practice. So if you have a 2-hour practice, 12 minutes of that should be based on like skill sets. So it should be actually like player development type thing. So whether that's, getting shots in where people are actually going to get shots or off of screens. It's not just breaking into, at least when I played, it was always broke into forwards and guards. I played on a team that we had specific people that would bring up the basketball. To me, it's break down into their sets. What are they going to be doing with the basketball? What are the skills that they're going to be working on in a practice that they can actually focus on? If you just have shooters, yes, they need to be, put in ball handling situations. But, if you're not going to be putting a player in that, don't run them through the same drill. Get them through a drill that's just going to get them shots. Really work on the actual skills of things within the game. That was at Shemeketa. We always spent at least actually 15 minutes a day in a practice on our skills. So, what we did in the off season, we basically brought those workouts in to our practice sessions, and we were able to get in our skills. I always talk about, you see most in high school and in college, you're going to see a trajectory. Beginning of the season, a lot of players, are making the right reads. They're playing really high, and coaches are like, oh man, our kids are playing. And then, even every high schooler and college person is going to hit that plateau. Whereas they worked on their skills at the beginning of the season because it's right at the end of off season, and everything that they've been working on is showing. It's showing that improvement. But then once they stop working on the skills, there's just kind of a plateau. They're not getting the same reads. A practice is meant for X's and O's. It's meant for, running a game plan against a defense or learning how, learning play sets. There's not a lot of time to just sit down and work one-on-one with players. That's why you see the best players spend time after practice working on their game. But we always found at Shemeketa that we found a way to incorporate that into our practices so we could not necessarily spend a whole bunch of time off the floor, but you could actually spend the time that we're on the floor, be efficient, and then you can now just get up, an hour and a half of shots or 30 minutes of shots, throughout the day, and not always just be locked into the gym like some players are. In the game enhancement, again, it's know your role. I've watched a couple of my other friends that are trainers. I've watched some of their NBA clients. I remember watching PJ Tucker. He's one of the guys that I remember. I remember sitting in a gym with his trainer and him and watching PJ Tucker shoot corner threes for probably an hour and a half. That's PJ Tucker's job. Like, he is to D up all the big time scorers, and then go hide in the corner and wait for James or Russell to kick it out to him and him be able to knock down an open shot. What I thought was just like, man, this is brutal. But that was his role. Again, during the off-season time, that was during an in-season session. During the off-season time, he is working on his, off the dribble stuff. He is working on attacking, trying to work on becoming a better playmaker for when he does have to put it on the floor, or when people are hurt, he can now, expand his role and do a little bit more. I always talk, it's kind of the old school cliche of game shots, game spots, game speed. I kind of go with that, but to me, game speed is different. Game speed isn't just 100 miles an hour. There's changes of paces. So to me, it's play basketball. When you try to make these game shots, game spots, we want to make them in the areas where they are, but we also want to run them at the speed that you would try to be at a game. 100 miles an hour isn't always game speed. I know for myself, I wasn't the fastest, so I always attributed my playing to somebody like Andre Miller. I wasn't lightning quick. I didn't have a crazy first step, but I had to use my body control. I had to use my body. I had to use my size to gain advantages. So what game speed for one person is totally different for another. So to me, game shots, game spots, and then the game speed that you need to play at, that you're going to be efficient at, is what you need to use. And then again, back into that film review on game concepts, help side where you need to be on the defense, why you're not playing on the floor. It's again, knowing your role. I always kind of explain it. You look at like a college, a lot of freshmen come in, they were a senior last year at their high school and they were probably the best player on their team. They have a skill set that probably is very well. They're probably taking a higher volume of shots, and now you're bringing them on a 4-year school, and they're going to now possibly sit the bench. Does their skill set change? Maybe, maybe not. They maybe taken those tough shots or were the go-to guy their senior year in high school. They can be that same player, and it possibly might be their junior or senior year of college when that happens. It all depends on the depth chart. It all depends on their strength that they come in with, their IQ, their ability to defend. There's a lot of different things. So it's knowing your role within your team and doing it to the best of your ability, staying ready, because you never know when that opportunity is going to present itself. One of my favorite stories is I played it in the Big Sky. So Tyler Harvey, Eastern Washington grad, he was a crazy scorer, but he was actually a walk-on at a Division I school. So he was actually had a D3 offer to Whitworth, which is up in Spokane, and he ended up going to Cheney, Washington, which is Eastern Oregon, or Eastern Washington, which is just right down the road from Spokane. He was a walk-on there and redshirted his freshman year. By his sophomore year, he only played like 4 minutes a game, and he actually got in a game against Northern Arizona, and they're down by like, I think 17. And in 7 minutes, he scored 14 points, brought him back, and then they won in overtime. The rest is history. He then played his redshirt sophomore year, and was the Big Sky. I believe he was the Big Sky Player of the Year my year that I was there. And then his junior year, he was Big Sky Player again, and then he was drafted into the NBA as a second-round pick. So did his skill set change? Not really. He said he played a ton of defense his redshirt year because that was his job. And he said over time, he, just kept grinding, kept staying in the gym, kept getting up shots because he was always known to be a shooter, and he just waited for his moment. That moment came against Northern Arizona, and he got in his zone and he started making shots, and he proved to everyone that, he deserved to be out on the floor. So again, it's know your role, but know your capabilities, know what you can do, and have the confidence that you can. So when your time does come, you can step out there and prove to everybody. So when we look at off season, it's now a 70-25 rule. It's not just all skills based in the off season. You have to, again, work on your skills based, work on, I wouldn't say quote unquote weaknesses, but work on like the footwork, the foundation of your game. And then and that's, whether you're a shooter, whether, you're a playmaker, whether you're a passer, all those skills have to be kind of done. So they have to be worked on, in a broken down situation where it's just raw skills. It's not, you're not working on a pick and roll. You're not working off coming off a screen. You are literally working off maybe just the footwork of a screen. So as you come off the screen, we are literally working on just like an inside curl step. So those little things can be broken down, and I break them down into like the smallest detail so we can clean things up and be more efficient. Again, we're still in the off season. As we rep those things and we get better, again, it needs to go to quote unquote game speed. So we have to take a step back and go into that 25% of workouts need to now actually be game enhancement, game based. So now, as we worked on that, say curl footwork off a screen, now we're actually gonna go live and go off the screen, make the reads off the screen, understand, where those come from. And now you start failing, but then we are now, tracking those failures. So, most of the time when we learn something new, if we did 10 reps, the player's going to do it maybe 2 times out of 10. Correct. So they're going to make the right read 2 times out of 10. The goal is by the end of it, 2 or 3 weeks later, we should be in there at 6 or 7 out of 10 that we're making correct reads on. Once kind of that's there and we're in that range, we then can like step back and move on to something new. Again, skill specific is, just shooting form, attacking footwork, dribbling attack, footwork, passing, IQ reads are big for me. Working on just stopping footwork, being able to stop with balance, being able to actually shoot with off balance. So be able to have controlled fades, control yourself away from the basket, control your body, change of paces. I could go through a laundry list of things. And then this is where you get to redefine your role. This is where you get to, as I always say, own your game. Be you. Be the things that you picture yourself being. Picture the things that you feel that you can do, and have that confidence so you can do it at a high level. So you can do it. Again, if you can't shoot floaters and you worked, all summer on working on your floater or working on your finishes around the basket, you got to own that you can do it. You got to own that you've worked on it and you understand the process, and you are now a better player for it. To me, basketball is a lot of mental, and when you have that confidence and you quote unquote can own your game, own you, then you can slowly redefine your role into a new player. And then film review. Again, I honestly film a lot of my sessions, so I'll pull out my iPhone, put it on slow-mo, and I'll record footwork, and then we'll go watch it. I always have a TV in my gym, so we'll go connect it to the TV so we can actually watch it, on the big screen, where your feet need to be. So watching even just that film, and then also watching that footwork broken down in from game-like settings from a game the season before, to show the solutions, show the options that we had, and then also again to clean up the footwork to show where we can be a little bit more efficient in things. So that's kind of again how I broke it down into in season and off season, and to me it's always a blend. That's why there's the 70-25 rule, the 90-10, because just because we're in season doesn't mean you only focus on in season stuff, and just because we're off season doesn't mean you only focus on off season stuff. Again, it's not just attacking weaknesses in the off season. It's about, building on your strengths that you have too, and cleaning up your overall around game. Game of basketball is turning into niche based things. Again, a 3-and-D guy is what people are looking for, on teams. So, those are specific skill sets. You have to find your role, and you kind of have to be able to blend those within the season and in the off season to know how do you improve yourself, how do you redefine yourself into a skill set that you want, or if you are fine with a 3-and-D, then how do we be the best one, and how do we continue to improve upon that? So now I'm just kind of opening up to any questions that you guys have for me.
Yeah, I'm going to let Jeff unmute himself, but I had a few I'll let him go first since he just unmuted. So I got a couple, but go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I was just wondering, for when you do your training, what is the biggest takeaway a player can learn from training with you?
The biggest takeaway is probably to see themselves in the light that I see them, or other parents or other people see them. I feel kids nowadays have lower self-esteem, lower self-confidence. So even for instance, this morning I had a session with a really athletic girl that could play potentially, JUCO basketball. She just has no self-confidence. She's always been told that her shooting form is really bad. And, when we went through it this morning, it was she has a really good shot. She has really good form. There's small little things that could be improved upon, but, it's her taking that criticism of she's always been told that she's a bad shooter, so she has no confidence in it. At the end of our session today, she hit 4 threes in a row, which she said she's never done that. So to me, training with me, you're going to see yourself in a different light, and you're going to see the confidence that I can help you gain, which is overall is the whole goal, because that actually is going to make you not just a better player, but it can help you in life in general. Just being confident in yourself, and again, owning your game, owning you, and be the best version of yourself.
That's awesome. Thank you. That's all I have.
I think that's really powerful what you said. Working with the high level clients is great and everything like that. That's what we all aspire to be, the highest level. But I've worked at a facility where we, trained, youth, high school athletes, and especially with the girls, they don't know how strong they are or what they're capable of. And when you see them actually do something, that's it makes it all worth it. It's we could have messed up the drill 600, 700, 800 times in a row, but when they actually get it, that's the most rewarding part that I found.
I agree.
As far as, so kind of, I guess these kind of all go together, but So are you strictly skill development, or do you like sport performance training or is that like the other part of the business?
That's the other part of the business. So being able to collaborate with this guy, he's actually an All-American D3 football player, and then he dabbled in baseball in college. So his side is strength and conditioning for both football and baseball. He then has a person that actually does like strength and conditioning for like the basketball side. But again, neither of them knew the skills side. They already do that for football, so they're trying to find a way to add skills into this. And that's where, again, I am strictly skills. I've tried to dabble in strength and conditioning, but my passion just is not there, so it's kind of wasted energy. When somebody else has that passion, I try to, again, running my own business, I try to get people where they're successful, where they love and they want to do those things. Because then it's not work for them. Whereas every time I step on the basketball court for skills, I ain't working. If I have to go into the strength and conditioning room, I'm not as comfortable. I don't know as much, and I do feel like I'm working. Hey, go that way, bud.
Sure. So one of my other questions was, so obviously skill development happens on the offensive side of the ball. Is there a way? Do you incorporate any type of like defense, obviously footwork and stuff, but how do you think, as far as from like a development standpoint, outside of like practice, can trainers and people do one-on-one small group work? How can they work on defense?
A lot of times I try to incorporate it into my drills. To me, I try to, like when I dribble, we try to sit down in a low stance that you're working your legs as well. So if you do stationary dribbling, you're going to stay low. You're going to stay in a stance, which would technically be defense. I did that as a kid because no one would work on defense. So at home, when I didn't have a basketball, or in Oregon, it rains all the time. I would sit in my house and I would do defensive slides. I would slide back and forth, work on that first step quickness out of a defensive stance. And when I hated that, I would just grab a basketball and I'd dribble and I'd just sit down in a defensive stance. So those are some of the things that I do when it comes to the defensive side. A lot of it is just, trying to find, I always try to find a time in every session to add defense or to add passing. Those are the two most underly worked skills. I think defense is a little bit different because to me it's hard. A lot of times it's how hard you're going to work. Are you going to outwork the other opponent? And are you going to understand, at least on my side, understand where your feet need to be? Honestly, sliding back and forth isn't really realistic. You don't see the best defenders just turn and slide down the court. They turn, get their hips open, and they sprint. They cut them off. They turn it again. They open up and they sprint. Somebody dribbling a basketball and somebody without dribbling a basketball, who's going to win in a sprint? Normally it's the person without the basketball. It's a little bit easier to run without throwing the thing out in front of you. So it's understanding angles. So trying to teach that to kids inside of drills. A lot of times at the end to kind of fatigue them and then shoot free throws. Or just adding them inside of, if we're working on like rips or triple threat, add a defensive component into it. So before it's your turn to get on offense, you got to start on defense, work on the footwork as if you were defending, and then you get a switch. So it's kind of just trying to add those into the sessions to kind of mix it up too.
Sure. And the last kind of thought you mentioned making reads a lot, which is really important, especially in when practice you do breakdown drills and stuff, making those reads. But is it a similar style in your training, or how do you teach someone to make reads without just you just do it really?
Yeah. To me, it's you make the situation for them. So a lot of times it's like, I'm going to give you only one option. So we're only doing one read. So whether that's a defender's on your hip, and that's how we're going to the basket. And it's a lot of times, like if I'm guarding you, I'll have like a little hand thing that makes me like 7 feet tall. So it's understanding your finish at the basket with a long defender. So a lot of times we'll just script that where it's literally your 2 steps, maybe a step underneath the free throw line. You have me on your hip and you're going to the basket, and now you have to make the read on how you want to finish. Are we going to go up with a floater? Are you going to extend it away from your body? Are you going to scoop it under? Are you going to scoop it under with the offhand? Or with the inside hand. So it's giving them those reads and not letting them have much choice in them. And then kind of then going into the breakdown drills that you would see for more of like the high school or more of the game of application, where now all the 3 reads that we just worked on, now you have to make the read on which one is correct. And again, recording it helps to be able to go back after, like a session at the end of a session and kind of put people's reads up. Or a lot of times I'll just send them to them at the end of a session and they can go themselves and then we can talk about it later. I have a lot of like dialogue through text message that a lot of my players, I just send them the film because I'll have another session right after and we'll then dialogue through text on, okay, I saw this, was that right? Did I not do this right? So it's kind of just breaking it down into small things and make them not only give them one read and then turn it back into your kind of breakdown drills on the coaching side where now you have all the reads, the 4 reads that we worked on. Now you have to decide which one is correct in this situation. And then a lot of times I'll play defense and then I'll just try to, really try to make them work their brain and get them in the concept of where they need to make those correct reads at.
Awesome. A couple more technical things, I guess. Probably can find this information on the website, but how long is a typical session, and is it small groups, all individual? How does that work?
So a typical session is 1 hour in length. If you're going to do, at least with the new side that we're working, if you're going to do the strength and conditioning side, it's going to be an hour and a half, so an hour of skills, and then since you're already warm and your body's already going, then you just move right into the weight room, and then you get right to your lifts. So that'd be an hour and a half. I do a thing called personal training. So I kind of have 2 options. So the complete training is the hour and a half with the strength side because it's complete, all of it together. Personal training is either 1 client to 5 clients. Because the game of basketball is played 5-on-5. Individual development is only so good. So when you're playing with 1 person at one, or, if you're the only person in the gym and I'm with you, we can only work on so much before we need to expand that to 2-on-2 to 3-on-3s. So a lot of times I try to keep the clients 1 to 5 because then I can do a little bit more with those. And then a lot of times I try to open up the gym, at least the new one that we have now. Like on the weekends before COVID-19 kind of got there, is a lot of times we just come in and do open runs with only our members. So we can split up the teams evenly and again go to breakdowns of pick and roll. And we can now work on the 5-on-5, 4-on-4 concepts and now take their skills from the 1-on-1s to 2-on-2s to 3-on-3s to 5-on-5s. So they can get the whole spectrum of all these reads, the spacing on the floor. Kind of like I always talk about, if it's 1-on-1 and you shoot a bad shot, you don't feel bad really. Because it happens to you. Whereas when every player that you add on to that court, the mental aspect of, if you shoot a bad shot and there's 4 other teammates, you feel like you let them down. Most players do. There's some that don't have a conscience or anything, but most players feel bad that they let them down, so they don't take those shots. When sometimes if you have 4 really bad high school players and you are the best player on your team, that bad shot sometimes is a good shot compared to Jimmy, who might shoot 10% from the 3-point line. Yeah, he's wide open, but your fadeaway lay-in might be better. That could be 40%. It's closer to the basket and he shoots 10. So it's just helping players like understand when it comes and they break down from a higher concept of 5-on-5 to understand their game and their roles.
Awesome. I think that's great. I got my dad has a friend. How far is Bend, Oregon from you?
Bend is just right across the mountain. So it's going to be about 2 hours, 2.5 hours away.
All right. I'll go out hiking sometime and I'll come check you out. I didn't have anything else for you. I thought that was great. Like I said, I have a little bit of experience, but not like developing my own program and everything. So we appreciate you being on. Jeff, did you have anything else?
Nope, that was all. Thank you so much, Jacob.
And I know you shared how to get in contact, and we'll have this up on replay and everything. So this will be up on YouTube and on the website and everything. So
awesome.
If you have closing remarks, feel free to make those. But
no, thank you guys so much for having me on. I appreciate you guys, extending out and being able to have me, on this and be able to kind of give my side from the West Coast style of player development. And hopefully we can connect here in the future.
Absolutely. We got someone else coming on at the end of the week from the West Coast down at Pepperdine. So we got both ends of the West Coast.
It's Rosario, isn't it?
Yeah.
I actually have a girl that is possibly will be getting an offer from them. So I kind of, me and Rosario have been in touch with her film and kind of her game. So.
Cool. Yeah, I want to make it there too. It's pretty beautiful. campus.
It is a really beautiful campus. She really wants to be in California, so we'll see what we can do. But
Awesome. Thanks again, and we'll definitely be in touch, okay?
sounds good.
See ya.
See ya.